Welcome back to the show, our dear friends. Me, I was going to say Dana and I are giggling, but then I thought about us not giggling. Then it made me laugh and it made me giggle. I have to tell you that the funniest thing sometimes is when I'm going back to do our edits, when I'm like trying to get it ready to like put it up in the YouTube space or the podcast, like the audio space.
Yeah.
And I'm just giggling because Dana and I'm like, wow, we said that.
And you'll message me and be like, oh my God, I'm dying. And it makes
dying.
me laugh too. Yeah.
I'm dying. Like I'll just text that to Dana. I'm dying and she'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right. Exactly.
So anyway,
oh my God,
but Dana, I've been having lots of conversations with different people about what autism really is.
Yep.
Right. And really trying to encourage people to think outside of the box of Rain Man.
Yeah.
And The Good Doctor. I don't know. Whatever mainstream media has decided, however they've decided to portray, it's like, or Young Sheldon or like whatever, I don't know, like Big Bang Theory, these types of things. But, and someone really pressed me, which was like, well, if you're just a different thinker, is that the only reason why you're autistic?
Yeah, like where does autism end and non-autism
begin?
Right. And it's that proverbial everybody's a little autistic kind of thing that you hear. Yeah. So where are the edges of that? Right. And part of it is, it always makes me think of the levels that we're supposed to diagnose if we give a DSM diagnosis. That used to be called high and low functioning, which is awful. Now it's like in need of
support. Mild, moderate,
significant
support or whatever support.
Yeah. And which is interesting. So you talk to people that are in like the ABA world and are in the disorder world, and they're like, yeah, these are great. If you talk to people that have the lived experience or practice neuroaffirming, they're like, oh. Reason being, it depends, right? What situation are you in? I recently assessed somebody who came right out on the edge of dyslexia, was in gifted classes growing up. And I said, okay, so you're right on the edge of the testing for dyslexia. Probably you notice those things get worse if you're like really stressed. And they're like, yes, I thought I'm not dyslexic because things sort of come and go. It's similar like that for autism and even ADHD. Like what bandwidth is the whole system under, right? And where you can do something easily one day, the next day you can't. I can put this morning I was laughing at myself because I went to put one of my socks on and it wasn't lining up by my toes. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. Whereas other days, that would ruin my whole day. What's going on there, right? So it really is that sense of how full is the bucket on any given day. That's that bandwidth of where does one thing end and the other begin for an individual. The question of, isn't everybody a little autistic? And I say, absolutely not. So you can't just cherry pick one idea like I think outside the box, or I'm a creative thinker. Oh, I must be autistic. Well, no, let's look at all those other sorts of things too. Like, do you have sensory sensitivities? Does the UV lighting in your workplace drive you out of your mind? Well, no. Can you listen to someone who has the radio on at the same time as you're working? Yeah, it's no problem, right? So you have to kind of it's a cumulative thing. And there are categories of things that we look at. I think of like how you think, what's going on sensorily. And to me, those do feed into what the DSM pathologizes around that social functioning. Write it down. I hate that diagnostic criteria because it's not that we don't know how to socially function. It's that we don't know the neurotypical rules and we don't thrive in neurotypical socializing. Hence, when we're with other people that are neurodivergent, we don't have a problem at all. Whereas I can be having a conversation with 3 of my neurodivergent students, and a neurotypical student walks by, and then now they're the outsider, right? They're like, what are you people talking about? So it really is more all those things that are sort of together and that express in different ways by person, because these things interact with our personality, right? Everybody has different personalities. I think everybody would admit that everybody has different personalities. How does my autism interact with my personality versus someone else's? And then on any given day, what is going on, right? So you talked to me 2 days ago when I got my new laptop, thought everything was set, and then it wasn't working, and then I had to deal with Microsoft stuff. I'm out. Like almost immediately, I'm just like, I'm out. Just nothing. There's no good day for this. I will never, right? Versus somebody else who says, well, why are you having such a problem with this? For me, computer stuff that I have historically had a hard time with, I will go from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat, right? So it isn't just everybody's a little autistic because you've identified with one trait, right?
Yeah.
It's how does it affect your life? What are the accumulation of traits? I think this is the big thing you hear from people in our field where they're like, oh, someone came in wanting a diagnosis because they self-diagnosed from TikTok. Ugh. And I'm like, maybe they're right. I doubt if someone on TikTok hears one TikTok video and says, oh, well, I picked my cuticles, I must be autistic. They're not that stupid. Yeah. They're seeing thing after thing after thing after thing lining up and going, wow, this really makes my life make sense. And this makes sense. And this makes sense. Whereas people who aren't neurodivergent don't do those things. My wife has talked about that because she has some traits, like she has sensory sensitivities. She doesn't identify with any of those other things. It just, and even if we try to make them fit, no, it's just not there, right? So she isn't a little autistic. She has sensory sensitivities, but she's not a little autistic, right?
Yeah, I really like that bigger picture. And like, I was joking with Dana earlier. I was like, listen, being nuanced, there's nothing sexy about being nuanced. Right. Dana and I are not jumping from being, from the rooftops, hollering and hooting about something. But like we're all in the weeds, Dana and I are like, how can we split that hair again?
Because like neurodivergent people love that. So, and
right,
we do. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I do think like, especially in the autism, or I'm sorry, the adult diagnoses. Yeah. ADHD, autism. When you're coming to this later where you're like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
It is that the description on multiple levels makes things really make sense for the way that you work, how the struggles you've had, why you might be good at something, etc. Yeah. But I absolutely see the thematic pattern of the way of thinking and some sort of sensory motor, sensitivity, something connected there as a woven pattern across the spectrum.
That's pervasive. Yes. And I don't mean pervasive. It sounds like an icky word. It gets into everything. That's kind of what I mean by personality. It's like, and that's that identity part of it. This is who I am.
Right.
And that's the argument from adults saying I am autistic, not I have autism, because it's who I am. Yeah. And that's that knife edge of going back and forth around that. Yeah, absolutely. It articulates into everything. It affects everything.
And this is why, for those of you where you might have gone down like the TikTok hole, I don't know if that's what it's called, you guys. I don't use social media, so please forgive me if that's it. But you've gone down that rabbit hole, right? And you're like, whoa. And then you're like, wow, this kind of explains the difficulties I've always had in school, I've always had in college, and now that I'm having in work, right? Yeah. So many of my clients will say, Gwen, I'm so confused. I know myself to be intelligent. I know myself to be hardworking. I know myself to be just, right? Fair, reasonable. I know myself to be all these things. And yet I can't do this. I can't
Yeah.
do this at work. I can't do this in school. It used to get me in trouble. And now,
Mhm.
like, my job's on the line,
Ugh,
right? Like these types of things. And it's like, you don't want to go to the run of the mill person who's like, let
right.
me open up the
Yeah.
DSM and boom, boom, boom. I've excluded you from the criteria
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
don't flap and you have
Oh my
language,
god. Yeah.
whatever. I don't know, like whatever it is.
Yeah, no,
I'm,
I've never been a flapper, and that was something I looked at initially. I'm like, "Oh, I've never flapped. I'm not autistic."
well, yeah,
So
most people are
yeah,
like, look at that. And it's like, no, you actually need someone to sit with you and be like, why do you believe this? How do you believe this? Let me understand your lived experiences. Most people don't
mhm,
want to do that. But again,
mhm.
you want to be someone that, like, you want to go to someone that really does appreciate the nuances, really, really
Yeah.
wants to understand your lived experiences. That is
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
critical. Like, if you're screening psychologists, and you're
Yeah.
trying to figure that out, those are some of the questions that I would ask. If you
Well,
want
yeah, because like
neuroaffirming
the
care,
yeah, even like the social thing, I could say, "I just don't feel like I have a need for it," and that's okay. What drives that, though? It is the sensory motor, back and forth. It's exhausting and that kind of thing. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person because I have less of a need for it. But if you go interview someone, they're like, "Oh yes, this should be a goal is to make you socialize." Just run because they're not interested in the nuance and getting in the weeds and understanding you. They're interested in fitting you into those, their understanding of those criteria. Yeah.
well, and maybe like a really discerning question you could ask would be, what do you use? What methods do you use to
Mhm.
determine diagnosis? And if they
Yeah.
just say an ADOS, an ADIR, and a DSM-5, run
Yeah.
for just don't even let them finish the sentence. Just like move on.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
So over it. I'm so
Yeah.
over it. Like, I'm
I'm so
so over
over it
that.
too. Yeah, I don't use that. Yeah.
So over that.
Especially for adults,
Yeah.
say you're gonna have someone else describe your behavior?
Uh,
What the hell? I wanna know what's in here. Tell me what's in here. Yeah, that's
tell
crazy.
me, yeah, and tell me like how it works for you.
Yep.
Like that there's a curiosity to that.
That's
But
right, right.
I think but this is the challenge I think that we have, which is, where does autism start and stop
Yeah.
in diagnosis? And that,
Or ADHD for
well,
that matter,
or
right?
ADHD for that
Yeah.
matter. So Dana and I are going to give you the standard psychologist answer. It
It's
depends.
yeah, and not everybody is a little autistic. Yeah, it just, but
I
that
think
if
let's,
you
yeah, rule that out.
I think that people they misconstrue the word spectrum, thinking, "Oh, spectrum that includes everybody." No, if you look at a normal curve, spectrum are still two standard deviations out into the tail. We're not talking about the middle. We're not talking about everybody has a little bit of whatever. We're talking about people that collectively have a bunch of the stuff that a neurotypical wouldn't fit into just because they have a
A bad
sound,
day.
yeah, or a sound
Or
sensitivity.
right,
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
right. It is a combination of factors,
Yeah,
all of them
yeah.
on some level, in some degree, playing with each other.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. We just kind of summed that up quick, Dana.
Yeah, look at we could save the world.
We have. There's been previous episodes where we have, and we have claimed such.
Yeah, good. Well, let's keep doing that.
We'll just keep doing that.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. Don't lose hope, everybody.
yeah,
Really.
yeah.
I know. I know. Be good to everyone, and be good to others. Please. We will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.